immigrants here legally are an order of magnitude more vicious and deranged and, again, dangerous and tied to these threats that we're seeing in Springfield, Ohio, than anything we've seen. And again, they're not without consequence. Today, a Haitian nonprofit organization filed criminal charges against Donald Trump and J.D. Vance over their repeated claims without evidence about Haitian immigrants in Springfield eating pets. Former Obama speechwriter Jon Favreau called Trump's anti-immigrant rant last night, quote, some dark, twisted bleep, adding, quote, the immigrants in Springfield are here legally. They've made the city more prosperous. Most residents don't want them to leave. Trump doesn't want to help Springfield. He wants to use Springfield to help himself. And he doesn't give a bleep who gets hurt. Again, this isn't bluster. Donald Trump is running on this. 42 days to go. And this is his dark vision of America. He's running on his promise of sending them back, also mass deportation of legal immigrants and migrants. He's drilling down on how he will do it by, quote, invoking wartime powers, relying on like-minded governors, and using the U.S. military. He is bragging that he'll be able to, quote, do it fast, thanks to some kind of serial numbers that he will use for immigrants. So yes, when Trump turns up the volume of demonizing immigrants in this country and laying out granular, chilling details about how he'll pull off mass deportations, it's not just a applause line, although that is alarming. It's not just Trump firing up his base, getting them so riled up that they're chanting, send them back, with the cameras filming their faces while they do it. It's what he is. That's who he is to them. That's who they are in this story. But it's bigger. It's bigger than that, right? It's deadly serious. The world's watching. 6 weeks to go, folks. It's where we start the hour with some of our favorite experts and friends. MSNBC columnist and contributor Charlie Sykes is here, plus former RNC spokesperson, host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller is here. Tim Miller, I start with you.
Woof, Nicolle. Yeah, I was suffering through that last night when it was happening live. And we can get into the politics of it in a second, but I couldn't help but think about myself in middle school or high school, and you're looking at the pictures and videos of the racist counter rallies of people blocking schools trying to integrate in the 60s and thinking, man, that was really long ago. That's really history. And then as you get older, you kind of realize, wait a minute, no, all those people are still alive. They're still with us. That was just 20 years ago, right? That was not history. That's now. That just vile racism that you saw at those rallies for George Wallace or something like that is not history. It's present. And I was watching that last night and thinking about my kid, and I was like, that's how they're going to feel about this. That is how can you look at a rally where there's a whole gathering of a mob and they're shouting, send them back, to people that are here legally. They are talking about, I guess, some sort of extra legal deportation, sending people that are contributing to the community, are working, are going to church, are putting their kids in school, are volunteering. They're sending these people back to a country, back somewhere else where there's violence, where there's no opportunity. For what reason? Lies, fantastical conspiracies about dog eating and racist lies. That is what underpins all of this. And it's really sickening. He does a lot of gross stuff. There's a lot of stuff that makes me mad, but this is the thing that boils my blood the most, because it is just fundamentally un-American. The Haitians that have moved into Springfield are doing the same thing that every other group that all of our parents and grandparents did. In my case, the Lebanese and the Germans and the Irish, they all came to the Midwest, tried to find jobs, had kids, had a family. That is the American story. And this is a fundamental attack on it in the most racist, demagogic way imaginable. And it's sick. And we've been doing it for 9 years, so it shouldn't be surprising, but that doesn't make it any less gross.
Yeah. I wonder what makes you scream, send it back in the light of day with cameras rolling. What is that about, Charlie Sykes?
Well, at the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee, they held up signs, mass deportation. You know, as you point out, this is who Donald Trump is. This is not a gaffe. This is not a one-off. This is what he is running on, and he's doubling down on it. You know, and to Tim's point, this does feel like a throwback to a much darker, more dangerous period of American history. We've been through these cycles before, and that I think is part of the cognitive dissonance. This is actually happening now. You might remember that a couple of years ago, he made this reference about African American congresswomen, saying send them back, and people, you know, had this deep intake of breath. This is shocking. Well, now he has an entire crowd chanting this, and why are they focusing on the Haitians of Springfield? I mean, the racism is so raw, and I can't help think that we are 6 weeks out from this election, and what commentary it will be on American culture and the American people if, in fact, they look at this man and go, yeah, let's put him back in power. Let's make him the president of the United States again. Let's ratify these policies. And by the way, this is the issue of mass deportation. He keeps talking about it, and there are polls suggest a lot of Americans want to do that. But I'm not sure that we've really come to grips what it means to take millions of people, put them, you know, in trains, on buses, arrest them, round them up, use the military, use police, separate parents from children. It would be one of the greatest humanitarian disasters of our time, and yet it does feel like millions of Americans are kind of shrugging their shoulders and going, we're okay with all of this. But we are 6 weeks out, and I'm really glad you highlighted this, because this is the choice. This is what it bottles down. This is the choice, not just for who we want to make president of the United States, but really what kind of a country we're going to be and what kind of a country we will be in the eyes of the rest of the world.
Well, and neither of you have said it, but I will. I mean, Trump talked about serial numbers. That's not just our heinous history of desegregating schools in the South. That's the history of the Holocaust. I mean, there were serial numbers in the Japanese internment camps. If you are offended,
right in the arms. Yep.
Right. So let me show you that. Don't take my word for it. Take Trump's.
They are a threat to democracy. What they're doing to our country, they're poisoning our country. They're poisoning it. And you can take a look in Ohio, what's happening. You can take a look at Aurora in Colorado and see what's happening. But those are two that have been in the news. You have hundreds of little towns and cities that are being taken over by migrants. If you take a young woman with two beautiful children and you put her on a bus and it ends up on the front page of every newspaper, it makes it a lot harder.
So yes to mass deportation, even of women and children.
So we're going to look at it very closely, but we're getting the criminals out, and we're going to do that fast, and we know who they are. And the local police know their names, and they know their serial numbers. They know everything about them.
That's where we are, women and children on the table. We actually know what that looks like and sounds like. ProPublica broke the story of the children, very small children, being ripped from their mother's hands. So they're out. They're going to be, Cheryl Atkinson asked, put on buses. Or Trump said that, if you take a woman with two beautiful children and put her on a bus for the purposes of getting it on a newspaper. It's always about the press coverage. But this talk of serial numbers has its own heinous echo to history, Tim.
Yeah, it does. And the camps, he's talking about camps, and who knows what it actually looks like, right? But we know it's gross. We do. We know for a couple reasons. We know because we lived it. With, you know, sort of the, I guess, trial run version of this that Donald Trump tried to do with Stephen Miller the first time he was in power. I remember I wrote about this article, I wrote for the Bulwark many years ago now about, and I'm forgetting the kid's first name, but his last name was Galicia, and his brother was an undocumented immigrant, and he was documented, and they were in Texas, and they were doing a mass kind of roundup or crackdown at this moment, and because the brother was undocumented, because they did not believe that the documented immigrants, like papers, they kept him in a cell for days. Like, his mother didn't speak English, was hard to get to him. They couldn't figure out how to get him out of there. Like, this was just one example. Like, we saw this. Trump admits it in that video. Like, if you're going to do this, there are going to be instances is where you round up a mother, where you round up the wrong person. I mean, like, that's what they're talking about. He's explicitly saying this. Like, we're going to do a mass deportation. We're going to try to get the criminals, but like, as part of the roundup, we're going to also get some mothers who probably didn't do anything wrong as well. And that is insane. It's un-American. And you know, J.D. Vance, his running mate, knows this is true. Like in 2016, J.D. Vance said about Donald Trump's immigration platforms, God wants better of us. God wants better of us. And he said the conservatives know. If conservatives don't trust government, I think he said to run the DMV, like, how can we trust the government to deport many millions of people and to do it efficiently and to do it within the rule of law? We can't. And so that's J.D. Vance. Like, they know that they cannot just deport the criminals. At least J.D. Vance knows that God wants better of us, and they're going to do it anyway, because that is like the heart of their political program. And as Adam Serwer has said, the cruelty of this is the point of the political program.
You know, I feel like, Charlie Sykes, we're past the point of, you know, clapping and giving the paper plate award to the Republicans like Paul Ryan, who could say, nope, not going to do it, not going to vote for Donald Trump. Where is the alarm? Where is the Republican effort to stop this dehumanization of asylum seekers, migrants, and legal immigrants? Where is the effort to say, this is not who we are, this is hurting us, this is hurting our communities? Where is the effort to say, enough is enough? I believe in conservative bag of tricks, but this isn't conservative, it's un-American.
You know, I'm writing an article about this right now, and the reality is there are a lot of conservatives who have drawn the line, but not enough. And I think that they're making this, you know, the false equivalent, saying, well, we disagree with Donald Trump on these issues, and then we disagree with Kamala Harris on these other issues, as if this is a remotely normal choice, as if we are really going to be making a choice based on, you know, what is your capital gains tax rate is going to be, what is your policy going to be with the Fed. No, this is one of those fundamental moments frozen in time where America has to decide. And again, there's nothing subtle about the racism here. He's moved on from Mexicans to Haitians who are here legally. And he keeps talking about it, even though his initial story has been completely debunked, completely refuted. The Republican governor of Ohio has said, no, stop doing this. These people are here. They are working. They have been invited here. They are here legally. And yet Donald Trump has decided that he's going to talk about these immigrants. And it's not just the serial numbers. Over and over again, he's talked about how these migrants, again, who are here legally, are poisoning the blood of the United States. They're poisoning our blood. Now, this is real throwback rhetoric. I don't think that there's no glossing over this. There's no normalization of this. And, you know, we've had this conversation for
Just 9
years
Charlie,
now, Nicolle.
throwback to what?
Yeah.
Throwback to what? Poisoning the blood.
Well, I mean, that is literally Hitlerian rhetoric.
Right.
You know, and I understand that there's this resistance, you know, Godwin's law and everything. But, you know, as Catherine Rampell writes in the Washington Post, you know, the reason why people draw these historical parallels, because they're so, I mean, the fact that you're talking about rounding people up who are poisoning the blood, making them aliens. Now, again, there are real distinctions to be drawn here. But for Republicans to look at them, and again, we've had this conversation for 9 years, how do you look at him and not go, okay, I may have a lot of policy and ideological differences with the other party, but this is not about those policy differences. This is something that goes to the heart and the soul of who we are as a country. You know, and for the people wringing their hands, well, no, you know, she would spend too much money or all of this stuff. Look, you know, could we just freeze the moment and look at what Donald Trump is saying that